Well, let's talk about Israel because that was also a part of this funding package. And, at the beginning, Republicans were saying, well, we kind of would like to bunch it all together. And then eventually that became problematic. But how does the United States support Israel? Because I know, the Democratic leader in the Senate had some pretty harsh words for their prime minister.
Yeah, and let's talk about that. Here you have the leader of the United States Senate go to the floor and criticize, our ally and a democracy there in the Middle East. Now, interestingly, he didn't call and ask for a regime change on the floor for Iran, who we know is funding these proxy organizations. He didn't go and ask for a regime change for Russia, and we see Putin's aggression and what he is doing. He didn't ask for a regime change in China or North Korea. You see, I could go on and on and on. Yet he came to our ally, and in a moment where we need to be providing them strength, he undermined them. There are 130 hostages still outstanding. That means 130 individuals that are hoping that they are saved. Their families are worrying. They have been taken in the midst of war, 5 of which are Americans. And we go out and you see Leader Schumer give Hamas the upper hand, and I think it is completely and totally unacceptable. And I also want to talk about the other tools that this administration refuses to use that embolden our adversaries and that undermine Israel, one of which is sanctions. So we have seen back under President Trump, he had a maximum pressure strategy when it came to sanctions. So by the end of his tenure, he got it down to about $7 billion that they were receiving from oil revenues as a result of this. Now, here under Biden, as they have loosened these sanctions, Iran is getting about $80 billion in revenue. We know what they do with that revenue. They fund their terrorist proxies, Hamas, obviously they're in Gaza, the Houthis in Yemen, and Hezbollah there in Lebanon. Now, at the same time that this administration walked away from the Pompeo Doctrine and actually started to sanction Israeli citizens in the midst of all of this, they actually removed sanctions on Iran, did a waiver for another $10 billion. Again, we know what they do with this money, and so you have to use every tool in your toolbox, and this administration needs to be doing that. We want to make sure that you preserve every innocent life, wherever it may be. But to go back to where we started, walking to the Senate floor and undermining one of our greatest allies at a time where we're attempting to get hostages home and of which 5 are American, is completely and totally unacceptable. They've got to finish the job they started, eliminate Hamas. Hamas is the enemy not only of the people of Israel, but of the innocent people of Palestine. And as we work to protect any and every innocent life, we have to make sure that we don't undercut Israel, which unfortunately this administration seems determined to do. And I don't know if that's because they are more concerned about polling in Michigan and Minnesota than they are about us actually keeping our word, but I think it's completely and totally unacceptable, and it's not the way the United States of America should operate.